Welcome to another episode of Comedy Wham Presents with me, your host Valerie, and sometime co-host Miss Purrington is back at home. We're recording from the lovely Driscoll Hotel in downtown Austin. ComedyWham.com is your place to go for features about all Austin comedy, including those passing through Austin, like our guest today. You can keep up with us on Twitter and Instagram at Comedy Wham or on our Comedy Wham Facebook page. In addition to podcasts, Comedy Wham brings you articles, album reviews, our monthly Comedy Wham showcase at Hops and Time in Lakeway. The next one is Tuesday, December the 7th, and an events page for live shows in Austin and Houston. If you're a comic in those cities and want your show featured on the calendar, go to the events page and click Submit a Show to complete the short survey. Now let's get back to our podcast. Launched in 2016, the Podcast Project brings you funny people and their stories. As a fan, I like to delve into a comic's background and motivations, and will usually take a detour along the way. Consider the interview a way for you to get to know the folks that make the Austin comedy scene one of the best in the country. If you like this podcast, please rate and review us. Today, we first met our guest in 2018 during the Altercation Festival, which is happening very soon. He's from Fort Collins, a place that I actually visited this past summer, so now I can totally relate and visualize a lot of the things that happen in that city. And he has helped shape and grow the scene along with David Rodriguez, who we talked about in 2018 as well. And now Comedy Wham presents our returning guest, Jacob Erdman.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome back.
Hold the applause. Everybody, I can hear it.
Yes, they're just, they're
yeah, I
fighting at the
didn't know you'd get like a whole audience here. This is great. We got that person and over there.
Another person.
Yeah, totally. Look at them go.
Yeah, it's
They're like,
we got a horse and rodeo show
dude,
here.
love it. We got some cattle baron guy looking over us.
Yeah.
I wonder if his ghost lives in this place.
Well, this hotel is known for its ghost activity.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I did not know that. I assumed.
Yeah, this is such a classic hotel, like of the traditional Western style, which is why I love bringing out-of-town people that I'm interviewing here.
Totally.
It's very relaxing, and
I just wonder how many prostitutes got murdered in this building.
oh well, I don't know.
That's got dark.
I don't know.
Because that's generally it. That's generally, like, how else are you going to get ghosts? You're not going to get ghosts from, like, somebody dying peacefully in their sleep surrounded by family. It is an arduous, you're fighting for your life and you just can't make it. That's what makes the best ghosts. Or poltergeists.
Yeah. You could Google it, I'm sure.
Yeah, okay, what makes a ghost? We can bring out the Ouija board, brought to you in part by Milton Bradley.
Yeah.
We got it all.
Jacob, we talked 3 years ago, and I was looking over my notes, and like I said, I visited Fort Collins this summer.
You should have hit me up for some shows.
I was there on a true vacation.
Okay, just decompressing from life. I hear it.
So I didn't, but I did go to the Comedy Fort.
Oh, that's so great.
So at least, worked that into my itinerary, and seeing it in person and then remembering our conversation and the healthy competition that you had with David.
Oh yeah, he won. He won. He's winning. It's more of a joke at this point.
Yeah,
it's like a nice little joke.
But he and there was another person really were shaping the scene at the time, and obviously now with a dedicated venue.
Oh, it's so great too.
It's established.
Yeah.
So those are the things, as the outsider, that I have observed have changed. What else has changed in the 3 years since we talked?
Well, obviously the major change is the club itself, the Comedy Fort, which is great because it gives a lot of these new people a bunch of club experience, the idea, and but with that, the growing of the scene has been like the COVID kind of gave the scene a shot in the arm regarding new blood and stuff, and so there's a bunch of new people on the scene trying to do what we do, and that's been refreshing. But I haven't actually. So my new job brings me out of the city a lot. Like I travel a lot. Like for example, so I do what's called mortgage inspection now.
really, you've totally changed gears.
Yep.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I got laid off in 2019. And February, non-performance-based layoff. I always have to say that because they're like, okay, you got fired. It's like, no, it was, I was working for a corporation, Airbus, Defense and Space, and I got a non-performance-based layoff. So with that, I traveled to Southeast. So I got laid off in February, and then so I went to Atlanta for a week and did a bunch of shows there, and because I've never been there before, and like Frontier was running a promo like $49 round trip, and I was like,
wow.
Let's go to Atlanta.
Yeah.
Never been there before. And then after that, in June of 2019, I went to Asia for 4 weeks.
Wow.
So I flew into Beijing, went to Inner Mongolia, which is just a province of China, right next to Mongolia. It's called Inner Mongolia. It's hilarious. Like, people are like, you went to Mongolia? Like, no, that's still a part of China. That's like us calling it New Mexico. It's like, oh, so they went to Mexico. It's like, no, we're kind of just rubbing it in their face that we took their land and they can't do anything about it. And then I went and I took a plane to Bangkok, Thailand. Then I took a train to Siem Reap, Cambodia, which is another funny thing. So Cambodia, in a war, took... so Thailand, before it was Thailand, was called Siam.
Okay.
And Cambodia won a war against Siam and took that city, and they named the city Siem Reap, which is basically they reaped Siam of that. So it's another kind of like,
wow.
get out of here situation.
Oh my gosh.
And then I went to Hanoi, Vietnam, and then so basically I went all through Southeast Asia while my friend was working his summer gig. He was camping because he works in China. He works in Beijing. And he was working his summer gig, and then he met me in a southern province city, provincial capital called Kunming, China. And then we traveled all over rural China for 10 days. And if you want to travel through rural China, don't.
Oh.
It is difficult. And being a white person with round eyes, people in that area have never seen other people that aren't Chinese. So they like sit there and they take pictures of you, which is cool for like the first couple of days. You're like, I'm a celebrity. But then it's like, leave me alone.
Wow.
Get out of here. Like, I don't know you. I don't care about anything they have to do. And they're just sitting there taking pictures of you to like, hey, look at a white person and stuff like that. And they gawk at you, and it's just like, holy cannoli. And then a lot of times I like to view the nightlife. Chinese people, they can't really process alcohol. So all of their beer is like super low APV because it's more of like a social agenda instead of getting drunk.
Yeah.
Because if they get drunk, they get like sick or something. Basically, like I said, their body just can't metabolize alcohol, so they get really sick. So they don't really have a nightlife. So I'm in central middle China, and there's no nightlife to speak of. The entire city closes down at like 9 p.m.
Oh wow.
So it's like, let's go. Like, there's no parties. There's no nothing. And
No
it's
comedy?
Definitely no comedy. Oh my gosh, I don't even know.
I've heard there is actually comedy.
But those
there,
are like
but
the bigger cities. But
yeah.
that's like more international.
Yeah.
That could be anywhere. It's
Yeah.
not like big cities aren't indicative of. Well, it sort of is, but like more indicative of like the culture and regions. And China's so big that when you say that you're on Western China, you're actually in Central China, but it's so mountainous over there they don't even have any cities. It's like, and here's the weird thing about China too, one time zone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like wider than the United States, and it has one time zone, and it's all predicated on Beijing.
Oh, wow.
So it could be like 2 p.m. and it's nighttime,
Yeah.
or it's like morning time, or like because you're so far. It is. It's super weird. And Chinese people are super rude because there's so many there, and it's so densely compacted that everyone's trying to get to where they're going yesterday. And so they literally push you out of their way if you're not walking fast enough for it. Yeah, like I saw them push over an old lady just like, and I was like, what the heck? And my friend's just like, she's used to it. Like, this is what they do. They are trying to get to where they're going, and they don't give a crap about anybody. And then spitting is huge in China. It is the worst. Like the first time I got spit on, because like they just turn over and spit. They don't even
so
look.
They don't care if somebody's...
Yep.
Oh, man.
And so when I got spit on, I was furious. My friend's like, if you fight a Chinese nationalist, you're going to go to jail regardless of what they did to you. Because it's Chinese nationalist versus a foreign, like, aggressor. No, you're going to go to jail. Like, so just... Like, even if you get attacked by a Chinese person, you just have to sit there and take it. Because you... And you probably still go to jail. Yeah. My friend is like, do not... Like, they have, like... basically 3 rules. It's like, don't do hardcore drugs, which that's a gray area at best. Don't fight, no like aggressiveness, and then do not question the government. You question the government, you're going right to jail. It doesn't matter. Yeah, so it's pretty like tight knit. Like you want to see communism in its harshest.
Yeah,
you go to China, and these people are like on like. And then they're like taught that China's the best, this is the way of life, and if you question anything, you're going to be a political prisoner. Wow. But it was a very interesting trip as well.
I bet. Yeah.
And then after that, we were talking about how I wasn't able to come to Altercation in 2019, because then after that, I got a plane ticket to Central America. So I went to Costa Rica and Panama.
Okay.
And a really funny coincidence, I found out that my cousin, who I didn't even know existed, on my aunt's side, this is why I didn't know he existed, my aunt died back in like 92, and her side, her previous husband's side of the family, so it's like a cousin once removed. He owns a hostel and a bar and grill in Pueblo Viejo, Costa Rica. It's called Tasty Waves Cantina. And I hit him up and I'm like, hey man, like we're family. I'm not like, because I don't like entitlement at all. Yeah. I'm like, hey, like I would like to support your establishment because we're family and stuff. Like let's do this. And he's like, awesome, yeah, come on down. I'd love to meet new family. And I was like, hey, I also do comedy, and I haven't been on stage for what feels like forever. And when I'm not on stage, it's like a weird like withdrawal syndrome. So I gotta get on stage, and if I can't do comedy, I'll do like karaoke or something. And I tell people I am awful at karaoke, at singing, but I'll put on a show. Like karaoke's not just singing; it's a performance art piece, and you get up there and you bare your soul. You get up there and one of my favorite songs is Shania Twain's "Man, I Feel Like a Woman." It is such a sassy song, and it's funny as a cis white male just getting up there talking about being a woman and stuff. It's so silly. But my cousin let me do 30 minutes.
Oh my God.
In Costa Rica. So now you're looking at an international sensation. Celebrity in Puerto Viejo, Costa Rica. A lot of people were talking about it. Yeah, people who were in the yeah, exactly. It's like sometimes you gotta lie to yourself. But so yeah, I got to do 30 minutes, and he's like, I really can't afford to pay you. And I'm like, that I just need stage time, my man. So basically, what it is, he gave me free room and board that night, and then I got tips. So I got paid like $150 to do 30 minutes. Oh my gosh, because it's a huge gringo bar too. So like you go to that area of Costa Rica, and it's like, yeah, go to this place if you're a white person who can't speak Spanish. So yeah, that was awesome. And then I went to Panama. Took a bus to Panama, and they have a so that whole place is riddled with volcanoes, like so many volcanoes everywhere. But ironically enough, Panama only has one volcano, and it's north of the central. There's a smaller city called David, or David, as we would say in English. It's basically just a transportation hub, and so it's north of David, and I forget what its name is. But I got to do some time at the hostel when I was there too, and that was so fun. The Hostel World Tour. Yeah, exactly, and that is a thing that I really want to do more often. Is like hit up these hostels, be like, hey, international sensation Jacob Erdman here. Oh, here's the thing that I forgot too. Is I did. So my friend, he lived in Kunming, China, and there's a lot of white people there. as well from America, a lot of expats, I guess they call them, because it's so inexpensive to live in Asia compared to the United States. Like, your dollar goes times 10 there.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Same with Central America. But I did an open mic, and I was like, hey, I do, American stand-up comedy. Can I, because it's like basically a music open mic, but I was like, can I do some comedy? And they're like, yes, absolutely. And my opening joke was like, nothing transcends the language barrier like American comedy, which is a goddamn lie. It was the first time that I actually had beer cans thrown at me.
Oh my God.
Because there were a bunch of drunk Chinese or Japanese or Southeast Asian businessmen, because it's a provincial capital. So it's like there's a lot, but it's a small city by Chinese standards. It's like 10 million people. That's a small city.
Jeez.
It's crazy, their ideas of small cities versus large cities. But I got to do stand-up comedy in Kunming, China, and that was my opening joke. But like, I'll tell you what, they were not stoked about it. It was like 10 minutes of being heckled by these drunk Chinese businessmen throwing beer cans at me, and I was like, I didn't even know I didn't even know Chinese people could get drunk, but these people were going after it straight up, or maybe they're just acting ruckus.
Yeah.
But it was pretty funny because like I said, like I was up on stage and they were like yelling Chinese at me, throwing beer cans, and I was like, this is the nitty gritty of comedy. This is what I do it for. It's for the people and the beer cans being thrown at me.
I mean, that's pinnacle of career.
Exactly.
Moment.
So yeah. That's been a fun thing too, is like traveling the world and then hitting up these hostels being like, hey, listen, I know there's a bunch of white people there. If you want like free entertainment, just give me some stage time, like, because that's all I need. I'll take tips. I'll take comedy. I'll work for any amount of money, sometimes money.
Yeah. So that would have been September, October time of 2019.
Yep.
And then did you get back home?
I got home and dealt with some personal issues, and then right away, so my mom got really sick, and so I went up to North Dakota where she was at, and then I came back, started this new mortgage inspection job, and then COVID hit. And I got COVID real early.
Oh, gosh.
I got COVID before they even knew what COVID was.
Oh, wow.
So I got it in Lincoln, Nebraska, like March 4th from my aunt. And you know how like the incubation period is like 3 or 4 days? Mm-hmm. Well, here's the messed up part, is that when it was kicking in, when I was my most contagious, I was actually at an open mic in Des Moines.
Oh.
Like, it was not good.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what was going on, and the whole crowd, like I was traveling, so I really wasn't a part of the news process, and people were all joking about this super crazy virus going around, and I may have given some people COVID in Des Moines, Iowa, at the beginning of 2020, and I kind of want to go back there because it was at a open mic called Lefties, and I kind of want to go back there and be like, hey, did anyone get COVID in the very beginning? Because I have some apologies to make. Like, you want to see a super spreader? This is the guy right here. And so I was traveling, doing my job, mortgage inspection, which essentially is just driving around the country taking pictures of buildings. It's great. It pays awesome. It's hilarious. And it complements comedy so well because, like, for example, yesterday I did 4 markets. So I went and did San Antonio and Victoria. So I can get all tax write-offs.
Yeah. Nice.
All itemized deductions. So I was out, and so I was out there being a super spreader because I didn't know what I had. I didn't know anything. And, when I got it, I was the sickest I have ever been. It knocked me on my butt. It is not to be trifled with.
Yeah.
It's a very serious situation. And so when I got it, I was like, this is the worst flu I have ever had in my life. Like, I'm never going to feel good again. Mm-hmm. And I also was like, this is a weird one because I've never had to use my inhaler for the flu before. Like, I was all like congesting up and stuff. And I was like, this sucks. And so I got home on March 10th and basically slept for like a month. But like when I woke up periodically, I was like, what the heck's going on with the world? And like March 14th, the world shut down. And I was like, I'm glad I'm home with like a decent enough savings that can ride me through this pandemic.
Yeah.
And
but on the other side, the mortgage business and the market for houses has just not slowed down.
It is
at all.
skyrocketed because of a lot of supply chain disruptions, a la like wood, for example. It's like wood is so expensive right now.
Yeah.
And so,
So once you got back up on your feet, did you were you swept under that whole crazy home market?
No, because I bought my house in 2019.
No, I know.
I'm sorry, 2014. Okay.
I know, but like your business.
Oh, so mortgage inspection essentially is mortgage companies own tons of commercial and industrial businesses throughout the country.
Oh, commercial.
Yep, commercial and industrial. So basically what I do is I go out there and I take pictures of these buildings, both outside and inside, and then write a report up and then basically tell the mortgage company the condition of this building. And if there's any what we call deferred maintenance from the previous year, you inspect that to make sure that the property management company did their due diligence. So basically, I'm working as a glorified narc. So I'm basically out there being like, hey, property management company, what are these people paying you for if you're not doing your job?
Yeah.
And then, so after I write my report, I have no idea what happens. I have no idea who does anything. So as soon as that's done, forget about it. I don't even care anymore. Give me my money.
Yeah. So when did you start going back to do comedy after the world started reopening?
So I was doing parking lot shows at my one of my favorite rooms in Loveland, Colorado, called Drake's Brewery.
Okay.
So in Drake's Brewery, the owner, Kerry Drake, was like, hey man, like a lot of small business, we can't afford to be closed. So how do you feel about doing parking lot gigs? So Comedy Gives Back is a great organization. And so they were saying they gave me a small amount of money, around $500. So basically it was like, if you made or paid taxes on $12,000 or more in 2019, we're going to give you a small stipend to help alleviate the financial burdens that COVID brings. Yeah. So Comedy Gives Back gave me a $500 situation where I went out and bought an FM transmitter to do parking lot shows.
Oh, wow.
So it just lateraled back into comedy. And so I bought like a car battery, a car battery inverter, which basically you just connect it to the car battery and it allows for AC/DC power. Like it's like a 110 situation, and then a transmitter, and then new mics and new mic cords and stuff, and then a soundboard that hooks into the FM transmitter. And so basically it was like around, I want to say, April, May.
That's pretty early.
Yeah, it was super early, but it was also only parking lot shows, and everybody was like, it was like all CDC guidelines, and it was obnoxious, and like, and the weather. Oh God! Like I've done comedy in pouring rain, just holding an umbrella. I've done comedy in a blizzard, just holding an umbrella. And I was like, dude, if that's not comedy, I don't know what is. Like just the idea,
such a diehard.
Yeah, just being out there, being like, all right, everybody, and like working for peanuts. Like I'm talking like donation based only, and it was just because the venue was like, you can use our parking lot, and so. It ebbed and flows, and it was fun. It was a funny experience because I live by the philosophy, always funny first, which isn't always the smartest or easiest way to do something. But, like comedy, like we're basically curators of stories. And so you got to really invest in your stories to make comedy. And you can tell when somebody tells a joke that's 100% not true. It's like, well, that's just fabricated. And but a lot of my, like I would say 100% of my jokes are predicated on real life experiences. And so you got to get out there and experience life. And that's the thing that I try to tell new comics too. It's like, you're going to run out of material like year 3 or 4 if your life is open mic drunk, show drunk, open mic drunk, show drunk. Like, you got to get out there and live comedy. You can't just do comedy.
Right.
And so that's what I was doing. Like, I was like, so I wasn't able to do comedy when I was in China for a long time. So I was in Thailand, and I paid somebody like, seriously, like peanuts. Like, it was like 50 baht, which is like American, maybe $1.
Oh.
Like their bot to dollar ratio is like in the cents.
Yeah.
And I paid this person to sing on their karaoke machine. And apparently karaoke singing, or at least my singing, is illegal in Thailand. So I had to bribe a constable, a police officer,
gosh.
more bots to continue my song. Like, he literally walked by me and did like the money sign. And I was like, I guess I'm giving you money.
Wow.
Like, I guess, like, because, you know, bribes also transcend the language barrier very well. So if you don't know what they're saying, just give them some money. They're like, more money. Like, if you want to not go to jail, or if you don't want me to not shut you down, give me some money.
Wild.
Uh-huh.
Wild. So one of the things that was a very prominent part of our conversation 3 years ago was you building up the scene in Fort Collins. But with you being away, like, did you have stewards of the scene that you were like, okay, it's in good hands?
Absolutely.
And
So with all of my shows, I get very competent guest hosts.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of them are the new class of comedy coming in, like year 2 and 3. And I'm like, hey, listen, like, I can only pay you X number of dollars. Do you want a guest host? And they're like, yes, let me jump on this and do this.
Mm-hmm.
And it, like, hosting is a whole different bag.
Yeah.
So with hosting, I mean, have you hosted shows and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
totally.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
want to be rude and stuff,
Yeah.
but I just don't know your comedy
Yeah.
experience because you're always on that side of the table.
Right.
Yeah, I'm interviewing you
Oh,
now.
no.
Here we go. But hosting, as you know, is a huge difference because they're sober and they're cold, and you got to break them in, and you got to keep the energy level high, and you can't be like a morose motherfucker. You can't do like you're just telling it as it is jokes. You got to do jokes of all, just try to corral them.
Yeah.
And if the headliner is, I guess, not necessarily good enough, but like aware enough, they'll hear what jokes aren't working and then lateral their set accordingly.
Yeah. So you left it in good hands. And
Yep.
then when you came back, or I guess when you came back, things shut down, and then things started reopening. And you probably, along with everybody else that knew David, got to watch like the building of the stage and like his chronicling of...
Yeah. What's so great about the Comedy Fort, it's literally built by comedians.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
Tobias Livingston is one of the most handymen out there, and if it wasn't for him, I don't know where the Comedy Fort would be. Like, he is the go-to guy for, like, when I talk to David about something, he's like, oh, that's a Tobias question. Go ask Tobias. Like, that, I have no idea. I just pay the guy, and he goes to work. Like, and it's so funny, because David actually gave him, like, a lot of just, like, do it. And Tobias has been just doing it.
Yeah.
And he's done a lot of like projects that have succeeded. He's done a lot of projects that have failed. And it's a constant movement within that room because they're trying to get as many people in there as possible, as you know, because a lot of the bigger names have a minimum seat requirement. So like Stanhope came out and he was like, I only work theaters that have minimum, like, I'm just throwing out a number, like 160. So we're like, so David's like, shit, I gotta find 20 more seats to put there. So, you know, they moved the soundboard and just moved the like. So basically, it's just a lot of movement before it's even finalized. Like, it's been open since February of 2021, and it's not even finalized because a lot of bigger names require a minimum seat requirement. So. And you know, always improvements. It's like owning a house. Like, you can always find something to work on to make it better. It's always it's an ongoing project, and it's beautiful. It's so fun because it's literally backed up against a brick wall, like you saw. Like that is so choice how it is. And David has done everything right regarding the Comedy Fort. Like, even drink prices are full prices. Like, for example, a beer is like $3 or $4. That's it. It's not like $3.
I'm not a drinker, so that's why you got the glazed look. I don't understand what that means.
Yeah. Okay. So a lot of times it's like, you know, $3.65. So he basically made it $2.45, and then with the tax, it's $3.
Nice.
Yep.
Okay.
And so with the tax, it's $4. With the tax, it's a flat rate. So it's so much easier to do tips and stuff.
Yeah.
And if you just have cash money.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be running around with a lot of change and stuff. So that's another thing that I was like, it's the little things and stuff.
Yep.
And the vibe in the Comedy Fort, like always a super hot crowd. And they have shows basically from Wednesday till Sunday, with Monday and Tuesday, and then they have Tobias runs a trivia on Sunday. It's just everything comedy.
Yeah.
It's just concentrated comedy.
Yeah.
It's so great.
I went to go see a show, and what was really funny is that local comic Dylan Sullivan was one of the features.
Oh, that's so great.
And so it was like crazy to see him walking into the room that we didn't know who the headliner was, so I'm like, okay, well, I saw a video clip. I'm like, yeah, this is the type of comedy I like, so we'll make sure, because I wanted to support David Waite.
Oh my gosh, we might have been at the same show.
Really?
Yeah.
No way.
Because I was racing back to see Dave Waite.
Oh my God.
But I showed up a little bit late, so.
Oh wow.
Was it? Because I forget it. I think I was at the Saturday show.
I was at the Saturday, the early show, because I had my teen.
Okay, because I go to late night shows, because the late night shows are like, if you want to get to some like different comedy, go to the late night show, because like they can go longer.
Yeah.
And not all the comedians, but sometimes the headliner gets a little bit tipsy and starts really getting into like the groove and stuff. And it's such a hot room that you can't say anything that's not. So, but I love Dave Waite.
Yeah.
He's like
he was fun.
He's like the pinnacle of like Midwest comedy, like blue collar Midwest. Just and I would consider him a personal friend as well. Like every time he comes out, I'm like, stay in my RV,
nice.
Like do my shows as well. And I just love that guy. He's like such a Midwest like dad figure who's just so funny.
Oh my gosh, how crazy is that?
Totally. Oh, we just missed. I would have loved like, oh my gosh, hello.
So what have you been keeping busy with locally, especially if you're traveling more?
Yeah. Locally with comedy, it's just basically booking shows and trying to get out there as much as possible. But literally, my mortgage inspection job keeps me on the road a lot, a ton. And like for example, I bought a minivan in March with 25,000 miles on it. It is now October, almost November, and it has 70,000 miles on it now.
Wow.
And that is just the summer.
Yeah.
And so it is a lot of traveling all throughout the country. And so that's what has been really keeping me busy. I mean, this summer I visited like 6 national parks, a ton of national forests. Like, so if I'm not taking pictures of buildings, I'm basically camping and posting up in these amazing cities like Prescott, Arizona. I've heard some negative things about how like people there are a little bit more ignorant and like whatever, but like my experiences in Prescott and Prescott Valley, Arizona have been amazing. And Sedona, like I got to do some stuff in Sedona, which was awesome. And Santa Fe is amazing and stuff like that. Like the whole Southwest is where I spend a lot of my time doing this job. And before this job, I haven't spent enough time there. And Santa Fe is such a fun city. I was doing some headhunting there. Like I was talking to the owner of a brewery in downtown Santa Fe called Desert Dogs. And he, like, because I was planning on doing a tour, but then the Delta variant came out, and I was like, let me push the brakes on this tour situation before everything closes down again, and I'm stuck.
Yeah.
But Desert Dogs in Santa Fe was very interested. There was a bar called the Matador that was very interested. Like, and then there's an international hostel in Santa Fe that was also that was very interested, and I was like, that's great. So next time I come through, I'll be like, hey, let me do some time. Like I can put up 30 minutes easy, and with 20 minutes of fluff. And so I got like these venues in these areas that when I go back, I'm like, hey, listen, it's me again. I'll bring a PA. I'll do all the production. I'll do everything. Just let me do some stage time. I'll even work for just tips and stuff. So, but
So you're basically wherever you go, you try to find a stage.
Yep. And that's basically just grassroots. all of it, all the time. And then just always living the philosophy, always funny first.
Yeah.
So if there's like a silly situation, I was like, let's do that.
Yeah. One of the things that I was struck by when we talked 3 years ago is you kept saying, I'm not that funny, so I have to work harder. Have you kind of grown out of that feeling?
I think that's more of a mindset, and it actually pushes me to work harder because like last night I did a show in Temple at a place called Corky's.
Yes, I love Corky's. I know
totally.
The owner. Yes.
Yep. So I was working with the Mug Rages, and so it was like Roderick was there, Colton Dowling was there, Josh Castro. Totally. So I was working with all those people, and I would and Mo Vita. Are you familiar with Mo out of Denver?
Yes,
she's a great friend of mine, so it was fun. So Colton and Mo did a co-headlining gig, and I did 15 minutes up top. And I thought that I did like a C minus set, but I listened to it on my recorder, and I was like, dude, I was crushing. But like I said, it's all internalized.
Yeah.
It's all like, I got to work harder. I got to be funnier. And I think that one of the situations is like, I'm not good enough for myself. So I have to constantly be pushing my comedy forward to appease an impossible task, which is me, to be the funniest that I can be. And I think that's a positive and a negative, because you get down on yourself, but then you listen back, you're like, I fucking did good. Yeah. So,
and that's, for me, as you know, we have this timeline, that's growth, because what struck me is like, you really just believed that you were not funny. And I'm like, but you're a comic. You're at Altercation Festival. You're building up a scene. You're performing there. So now that you at least recognize that, it's because of this demon that I fight myself. And pushing yourself is always a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't ever want to just wait around and die. I don't want to wait around to die. I don't want to just like be like, okay, I'm good enough. Let me, float along on my previous successes. I just always want to climb that next mountain that is comedy. And so being a very grassroots based comic, with going around the country just being like, hey, this is me, I know you don't know me, but I won't be boring. I might not get like the big boisterous laughs, but people will be engaged at least.
They're getting a show.
Yeah, exactly. They're getting what they pay for, and it's a free show. They are absolutely getting free show material. It's like, I want my money back now. And I was like, okay, I got it. It's like, just don't throw beer cans at me. That's all I ask. Just don't do that.
Yeah, I've been there, done that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they whiz by my head. I was like, oh my gosh, this is really happening. And then they're all just throwing, laughing, like I was like, all right, this is comedy right here.
You mentioned that you were traveling a lot in the Southwest. Have you traveled northward or to either of the big coasts?
So not necessarily the East Coast. The furthest I've traveled east was Peoria, Illinois, and then southeast was I forget which place in Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay. Because I think there's a Mississippi, maybe, also.
Yeah.
Or I could be.
Yeah, exactly. So,
wrong.
exactly. There's so
Florida.
many. But anyway, so Florida, southeast Florida, and then back up through Tennessee and stuff. So that whole region, Atlanta, stuff like that. So I've driven that. That's as far as I've gone. Yeah. But a lot of times when I'm like, I really got this job during COVID. So a lot of times venues are like, you can do comedy here. And then they're like, wait a second, the Delta variant is coming up, like, people are getting sick, like, we're going to cancel. Like, I had some shows cancel in Albuquerque as a result of that. Just like, Delta variant is coming up. And then so the whole Southwest, when I was there, was like kind of a couple of months ahead of Colorado regarding the new mask mandates. And I know it's kind of the Wild West out here in Texas. But in Colorado and Arizona and New Mexico, a lot of those places are back to indoor with social distancing, indoor, like masks everywhere and stuff. So, they're taking the Delta variant very seriously because I guess it's more contagious or whatever. So, it's crazy out there.
Yeah. I want to start winding down a little bit, I know this episode is not going to come out until after Altercation Festival. Are you staying through?
I am.
For Altercation?
So I'm going to probably be leaving here around October 31st.
Oh, okay.
So I'm here to support JT in the whole Altercation Fest because you know comics. It's like dealing with children.
Yes.
It's like wrangling cats. Yep, there you go. Yep. And so sometimes when somebody's a no-call, no-show, some flake, he's like, how do I feel? It's like, I'll be there for you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm there. Just give me, like, just make sure that I'm not super hammered because if I am, the show will suffer accordingly. It's a very direct relationship.
Yeah.
After 2 beers, it is just like, wow, dude, like, just don't go on stage. But I can't. It's my drug. I need to, like, get that next level. But yeah, so I'm here to support JT in whatever he needs for Altercation. Like if a host flakes out or if somebody gets sick, if a host or a comic, a support feature gets sick, I'm here. Like I'm fully back. So I was working full time at an elementary school when I wasn't traveling doing comedy and when I wasn't traveling doing my mortgage inspection job because I'm a busybody. I'm like a workaholic. So COVID was my tailor-made apocalypse. Like, it was the worst. Because you couldn't go out to eat, you couldn't go out to drink, and there was nothing to do all day for 9-10 months. So I got a full-time gig at a school as what's called a designated sub. And so with the designated sub program in Fort Collins, they don't want substitute teachers bouncing around in case they get COVID, and they're like, now we got to close down 3 schools. So I worked primarily at one grade school, which was amazing. I loved it. I was working as a substitute teacher on my off time, and I was like, I don't really like this. Even though I'm a huge people person, and I love the kids, and I love the staff, like, why don't I like it? It's because I didn't have any rapport with the students or the staff at all these schools. I was basically the new guy constantly. And no one wants to see, like, a sub that looks like me, and they want to establish rapport. They're like, this is just a stranger who's going to be here for a day and I'll never see him again. Like, I'm not going to sit and eat lunch with this stranger. Especially a guy who looks like me. They're like, this guy is very aggressive looking. Like, get away. Like, I put off that vibe of, like, get away from me. You know, you can feel it, right? You can feel that very aggressive. Just like, that's why you're sitting on that side of the table.
Well.
The longest part of the table. Can you hear me down there?
Not that far.
It's a standard table. But they don't know that. They think it's like
true.
In the movie Batman. It's like the big, long. But so I worked full time at a school from basically October to June of 2019-2020. And when the January 6th riots were happening, I got all the kids over here, and I was like, look at this. Like, this is history. This is the stuff that you will be like, where were you? It's like, Mr. E gathered us around. And when those pictures came out with those people looting the Capitol building, I was like, you know that you're going to jail, right? It's like, you can't just break into a federal building and steal stuff and be fine with it. I mean, you got your feet on Nancy Pelosi's desk. You're going to pay for that. You're stealing the podium of the Senate. You're going to pay for that. Like, it doesn't matter what this crackpot said. It's still a federal offense. Like, this man is only going to be president for X number of years. After he's done, you're not going to get a pardon. He doesn't care about you. How do you not know that? And it's the same people who are like libtards, sheeple. I'm like, you're literally doing the sheeple thing. Like, and then you see these things like people are reaching out for, at the time, President Trump for a pardon, and then they're like, oh, like, why did you do it? It's like, I just got swept up. I'm like, that's sheeple. You just got swept up. You don't get just swept up rolling into the Capitol building with handcuffs, with like zip ties, with riot gear, like that. You planned on doing something. Like, how did you didn't just get swept up? Like, it is, albeit it is very what is it? The evidence. It's like very hearsay. It's very conjectured evidence, but you didn't just get swept up having full riot gear, storming the Capitol. Like, that's not something that just happened. Like, and
so you were having these conversations with the elementary kids.
Yep, I was trying to, because it was like a little bit. It was like 4th and 5th grade.
Okay.
So with that elementary school, I got hired as a designated sub, and so they were going almost 100% digital at home during the peak of it. I'm talking between November and June of 2019 or 2020, 2021. And so the less affluent children, or the children that had parents who just weren't home, they came to the school still, and they had pods. So I had the 4th and 5th grade pods. And so basically I would just monitor these children as they were learning digitally. And that was another great thing, is that I got to establish rapport with these children now. So like now we're like, Mr. E, like I call it the party pot to help alleviate any sort of stress. Like I would bring in donuts, I'd give them pizza and stuff. Like, because like it's very, like, you don't realize it until you're older, but like being a kid is so stressful because you're just going with the flow because you don't have any choice.
Right.
And that is a very stressful situation for these children as well. And you know, you internalize it and you break it, you like push it down in your like subconscious and not know it. But I was like trying to alleviate any sort of stress by calling it the party pod and being like the good times. Like, so instead of being like a very stressful situation, they'd be like, oh man, that was so fun. Mr. E was out there. And being a positive male influence in that setting is also very important for me, because at the school there's like, let's say there's 80 employees, there's 4 male people in that, even like the custodial staff and like all the support staff, like custodians and lunch people, all women. All the teachers, all women. And so being a positive male figurehead is also very important, because like, you know, it's just too much of one thing is difficult regardless of the situation.
Okay.
So
you're here through Altercation. Sorry, keep redirecting.
Oh, totally, yeah. Tangents.
Yeah. Well, it's my disclosure, right? There's detours along the way.
Yeah, exactly.
We took a worldwide detour. So, how do I want to start wrapping this up? Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to talk about?
It's been the longest, shortest year ever. Like during the time, it's been so long, but you look back at it, and I just call it the blip.
Yeah.
Like, because like, well, what did you do during this? I was like, I probably ate marijuana and played video games. Like, I was talking to one of my friends. I was like, my hands hurt. And I wish it would be something cool like masturbating, but it was video games the whole time. Like, that's how old I am. I'm so old that I'm getting video game cramps. Like, I'm like, my thumbs, like, that's the dexterity is... So... that is how pathetic my life has been. It's like I get video game cramps, like cramp up in my hands because I'm doing nothing else. And to me, that's a nightmare. Like, I haven't touched my PS5 or my Nintendo Switch since I got them, because I've been on the road hustling, doing comedy and mortgage inspections. So, like, that's another positive thing, that, like, you know, I have it, it's available, but, you know, forget about it. It's tertiary at best. Like, it's not something that I look forward to. It's like something that I just do to pass the time. And something I spent money on during COVID.
Yeah.
We all did impulse, depression, anxiety shopping. You like that's the funny thing about Amazon. You're like, you wake up and you have an Amazon, like, what did I buy? Like, oh my gosh.
Exactly.
You shake it.
Orders.
Like, yep.
Really? Did I do that? Did I really
Exactly.
buy that? Did I really do that?
And here's an interesting fact that I found out, is that I am not a huge alcoholic. I thought I was, but it turns out I'm just a social drinker. During 2020, I could say with confidence I got drunk less than 20 times that entire year, because
it seems like so much to me.
Yeah, exactly. But that's different than getting drunk over 20 times in one single month.
Yeah.
So, but like, yeah, it's really not 20 times in 1 year, because I would have like dinner parties with my roommates and stuff. So it would be like one of those times, because, you know, we're all going through it. At the time I lived with a bunch of comedy roommates. So it's like, but outside of that, I'm a very social drinker. If I'm not out socially drinking, I don't drink. I just get a little high on marijuana and just, you know, take it easy. But yeah, I am not the raging alcoholic I thought I was. So that's a positive thing too.
That is a positive. Do you want to do your plug for the Fort Collins comedy scene?
Absolutely, yeah. 970 Comedy is my production company. My name is Jacob Erdman, obviously. And yeah, come out if you know people who are traveling out there. I supply room and board for traveling comics. I got an RV that they stay in and stuff, and I run 3 rooms, 4 shows monthly. So it's all scattered throughout. But 970 Comedy, I'm getting my website back up, 970comedy.com, and also check out the Comedy Fort. It is such an amazing venue. It's magic.
It is. And there have been so many comics that have moved from Austin to Fort Collins. So, yeah, it's been fun to watch.
Totally.
I mean, it's sad that we lose them, but,
Yeah.
we know they're going to a good place.
Exactly. It's like a dog.
Going to LA or New York.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. It's like a dog dying. It's like they're going out to the farm.
Yeah.
They're in a better place now. Because isn't this place getting so saturated with the people moving away from the West Coast?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's a wave. Like even Colorado's feeling that the hike in that regard, and like Reno's being inundated, Las Vegas is being inundated, because like why pay $5,000 to rent a studio when you can just buy a house and pay $1,000 mortgage and have own property, and you're still doing your job, you're still doing comedy.
Right.
I mean, it's just in a different place.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, we've definitely seen the influx here. Jacob, one of the things that I always do with my interviews, and we did it in 2018, is I ask a past word and future word, and I'll recap. Last year, or 18, your past word was easy, your future word was hazy. So today, what is your one word to describe your future?
Oh, jeez. Bright. I like my trajectory and where I'm headed. I'm getting more comfortable being on stage, because that's it. You just have to be comfortable being on stage. You got to be yourself. You got to find your voice, and it's tough because the stage is scary. You get up there and you're like, oh my gosh, you expect me to make you laugh? Like, let's do it. So yeah, I'd say bright. It's I like the trajectory where I'm headed. I like the people I work with. I finally love my job, and it allows me to get out there and do comedy more. So.
Yeah.
It's always
fantastic. That's a win-win-win-win.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, that is a wrap on Comedy Wham Presents. Jacob Erdman, tell us where we can find you on social media. And
970 Comedy for everything, basically. Okay. I try to make it as easy as possible because, working with comics, you just have to make it the lowest common denominator.
That's right.
Because if you try to do more, it's too punny or whatever, and you got to start spelling out stuff, it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
970 Comedy in every portal.
Very good.
Even Venmo.
Even Venmo.
Yeah,
yay.
so Daddy needs that Bunsen.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed revisiting with Jacob today and learning how he got to be the comedic genius and world traveler that you heard today.
International sensation.
That's right. Coming to a hostel near you.
Thank you. Hell yeah.
As much as I have. This has been Comedy Wham Presents Jacob Erdman. I'm Valerie, and that's been funny. Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you so much. Awesome. That was a